You're listening to Season 3 of the Fairways People podcast, where we share inspiring stories, meaningful conversations, and the voices behind our charity. Each episode offers a closer look at the people and passion that drive us. Hosted by Fairways Managing Director Gareth Webb.
Hello, welcome to another Fairways People podcast. My name's Gareth Webb, and today we have Shannon. Hello, Shannon, how are you?
Hello, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, I'm good. Thanks for your time today. So it's great to have you on, and we've got lots to talk about. But first, I'll pass it to you. Give me a little bit of introduction about yourself, Shannon, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. So I'm a 24-year-old care leaver from Shrewsbury, a little bit of a rural town. So I'm not a city girl, unfortunately. I'm representing for all the small town care leavers. But what it is that I really do, I'm trying to use my lived experience to help educate and help the next generation of care leavers and people within the community, because I believe the care community isn't recognised enough. So with my own lived experience, I'm trying to better it, essentially.
Definitely. And we come into contact on good old LinkedIn, didn't we? And I connected with you, and I see one of your posts, and you were speaking about supporting care experienced young people, and talking about there's a newspaper article about a book that you had made, which I thought was amazing. So I reached out, and here we are today. But we'll come on to that in a minute, if that's okay. But what I normally do with guests, I ask them a little bit about their childhood and where they grew up. So if it's all right with you, if you tell me a little bit about yourself.
So, unlike, a lot of other care leavers, I went into the care system at 15, so quite late compared to other children that have experienced the system. And I went into semi-independence at 16, so I went quite late. I was very fortunate to have one foster placement compared to a lot of children within the care system that, have several. I was outside my local area though, which wasn't very ideal. So a little bit about myself when I was younger. I think I did struggle with the care system. I've only, I'd say, in the past 2 or 3 years come out of that fight or flight mode, because I feel like as a child in the care system, I constantly felt like I was here, there and everywhere, whether that be meeting new workers, constantly having meetings, questions. I did feel like it was sort of all at once. So when I hit, I'd say about 21, 22, I sort of gained that clarity of being able to see things clearer. I had my first home that I was settled in, and then I started finding out all the rights and entitlements that I was entitled to and that I wasn't really told. So that one path led to another, and here I am.
Cool. So if you don't mind me asking, you said you come into care at the age of 15. What led to that?
So I don't really speak too much on my family. I am quite fortunate where I do have a relationship with my, family compared to some care leavers. Unfortunately, I was a child of someone who was in the care sector himself, my father. Unfortunately, he is one of the examples of a failed care leaver. So him falling in statistics of being the 25% of care leavers that fall into the jail system. And unfortunately, that ended up affecting my life, which then entailed me to be in the care system. So what I'm trying to do is essentially break that cycle of, family trauma and family experiences. I'm trying to, if anything, not let it break me down, use it as my power to help others, because I believe I'm quite a kind person. I'm always wanting to see other people excel from low-income backgrounds, whether that be from the care system or just general low-income families. I believe that the low-income community deserves so much better, and I'm just trying to break the narratives of the statistics that I face as a care leaver that my dad also faced.
100%, definitely. So, so 15, that's a real influential age, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, it's difficult anyway to come into care at any age, but 15 is a teenager.
Yeah.
How was that? That must have been really challenging for you.
Well, When I was a lot younger, we did actually advocate for social services to help us. Due to having a father that was in criminal activity, we weren't strangers to social services. Our family tried reaching out for help. Since I was probably about 13, but it took to me being 15, halfway through my GCSEs, being kicked out of essentially all my family placements and having nowhere to go. Social services had to take me on because I went to school with 4 bin bags. Now, I didn't have a lot of, as bad circumstances as other care leavers and care experienced children have. I feel like my family trauma and why I ended up in the care was failure due to social services not doing that aftercare or that support. I feel like social service only really wanted to know me when I was at rock bottom or when my family had kicked me out. So yeah, I just feel like um, with my story, I just think because I went in there so late, I didn't have as much experience as a lot of other care kids. But just because I didn't have that experience, I wanted to help those that couldn't essentially advocate for themselves, that have been through a lot more trauma than me, because I believe that they deserve so much more. So, for example, with my dad, I'd seen how his failings of the care system affected him. So I just wanted to create something to help care experienced children. That's why I created My Rights, My Life booklet, essentially.
Definitely. And
Mm.
something just struck me then. We talk about or read about kids turning up in with bin bags of clothes, and stuff like that, and
Mm.
their belongings. Yet you just said you've done that, and that was only literally 9 years ago. It's
Yeah,
still happening. It's still happening today, and it's
yeah,
horrific.
sad.
Um, so I assume you went into a foster placement
Yeah,
initially. Is that correct? Yeah.
yeah.
So and how was that? Because we know at the minute there's like a national crisis. We need so many more foster carers, and it's something I'm really passionate about. How do we
Mhm.
find good, experienced caring foster carers? But what was your experience like in foster care?
So I think with my experience, obviously I started my journey with bin bags. I feel like it's very important for children to not be moved from placements with bin bags. Even though, I experienced a lot of trauma from my childhood, I still had that dignity of, oh my God, what they're going to think about if I turn up with bin bags. I think what also makes a good foster parent as well, that someone who listens. I feel like a lot of the time some can play hard on the authority figure because obviously, it all falls on them. But I feel like children that have come from backgrounds that aren't similar to the foster carers, I think there needs to be some sort of meeting in the middle. So, for example, I'd come from a family background where we didn't eat dinner at 6 o'clock every night with like 6 people around the table. I usually just ate in my room or just did whatever. I didn't really have that set in stone routine. And I found that quite daunting. I think one of the good things that my foster carers did was be quite patient with me. Um, I think just being patient and learning to understand that child, I think it's very important when taking on a child from care experience. So I went in there at 15, so I'd already had that sort of family, you know, understanding of where I come from and my identity. So for teens, fostering teens, I know a lot of foster carers don't like to foster teens. But then in my experience, I think it's quite good to have someone, not necessarily from the outside, but someone to just take that time to understand you. I think it's really important for teenagers because a lot of the times we can feel judged or seen as naughty or, outspoken or rebellious. But just having someone to understand who you are, what your morals are, whether they be right or wrong, to have that safe space of someone taking the time to understand you, really.
Definitely, definitely. And how long were you in that foster placement for?
So I was there for about 10 months. I was under something called a Section 20. So essentially my mum still had rights. I essentially went back to my mum's, but the placement broke down. And then I ended up being put into semi-independent pretty much just after I left school on I think it was the first month of college. I think foster placements and semi-independence are two completely different things. I feel like foster placements is like adapting to a new habitat. You know, you're around new people, you're new rules, you still have to listen to essentially, you know, carers or parental figures. But when it comes to semi-independence, I was naturally quite mature, and I feel like that can be quite dangerous. Because when I was in semi-independence, I got myself into bad situations, because I seemed mature. But unfortunately, I was having to live off like £48 a week. I mean, that's nothing for a 16-year-old. I used to spend like £28. Um, and what was it? Food Savers or something. I think it was Food Savers. I didn't go to Asda's or anything like that. I literally went to the cheapest local food store. And then I had to have a life, and then there wasn't any carers actively saying, you know, let's do this, let's do that. Like a lot of 16-year-olds are still, you know, going on holidays with their parents, spending time with their parents, having activities, whether that just be having a movie a night in or, you know, going to Tenerife. I didn't necessarily have that. So it led me into like bad situations, and this is why I can see why care experienced children end up in like county lines, end up being groomed, end up in domestic violence relationship or having kids young, because they don't necessarily have that um companion or authority figure that really looks out for them. I feel like if you're a child of the care system going into semi-independence, it's almost, again, you're being kicked to the corner, because as you know, when you hit 18, you often fall into something called the care cliff. But then if you're in semi-independence, the words in the name, you're semi-independent, you're on your own. I mean, when I had my carer, it was an extension on the back of a one room, and I hardly used to see them because, you know, I used to keep my room clean, I used to have food in the thing, but I still had to learn that all by myself. And then, you know, having other children that had been through traumatic events that couldn't necessarily handle it. So, you know, I'd hear, you know, commotion or heightened emotions or quite traumatic things. So yeah, it was difficult, but I feel like semi-independence really made me grow up, which is a good thing. But then it also stole a lot of my innocence of being a child.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we hear and we talk about that a lot, about the care cliff edge, and
Mhm.
you know, young people set up to fail. And you're right, you know, at 16, 17, 18, generally a lot of young people are still doing stuff with their family. They need that support network, and
Mhm.
sort of you're left to your own devices, and you know, and have to sort of fight the world on your own, which must
Yeah.
be really scary, really
Yeah.
scary. Um, okay, so what it sounds like, I think you've dropped in a few times. It sounds like you've continued with education though along these challenges. Is that right?
Yeah. So when I finally got my accommodation that I was promised from the care system, I sort of settled down for a little bit. Um, you know, I enjoyed being a 20-year-old. I went on holiday, you know, I enjoyed time with my friend. I enjoyed arranging my living stages of being comfortable to be in one place. Um, but then I started to research about what I was entitled to, and I realised I missed a second chance to education at 21. And 21's a difficult age, you know. You know, you feel grown up, but you're not. And I'd seen a lot of my friends from school finishing uni, or they had kids, or they were in, you know, good careers. And essentially I was like, well, where do I go? I sort of lost my identity being in the care system. You know, I used to want to be an actress. I used to want to be a singer when I was younger, but because I was in constant fight or flight mode, I sort of lost that, and I just become the stereotypical narrative of a care kid. And so I, you know, got all the living a little bit out of my system and started to wanted to gain some sort of, you know, education or whatever it may be behind me. And as I started researching, I just started figuring out all these things that I'd not been told. Got back into college because going into foster care halfway through my GCSEs, I didn't get my English. And I thought college is just a good place to start, even though I hated the school dynamic. You know, there's things in life you just have to get on with. So I thought, do you know what? Get myself a bit of education behind me. I'll do that. And I also had family members that were younger than me that were in the care system, and they'd always ask me for advice. And obviously, being the first, I had the experience. So I was saying, advocate yourself for this, advocate for yourself for that. And I just started brainstorming about what it was I could be. And I didn't have that family background where my parents had, you know, amazing careers or had money to put me in certain sectors. I just didn't have that. And even my own even care team, there's no support. I understand there's people that do CVs and stuff, but I want more than that. I feel like as a Gen Z person, I feel like we want to do more physical and get in there rather than just doing something for nothing. So I kept looking online, what's popular. Then I seen digital marketing. I know that, you know, sharing your stories online, and stuff. Everything that I just learned pretty much. I ended up downloading an app called Canva and thinking, why don't I put everything that I've learned into the care system, into a booklet, so no other care leaver is in that predicament where they're alone, where they can't find that help. Because my time being a care leaver, I've often been passed from pillar to post, and this sparks a certain type of anger in care experienced kids, and because they're not taught how to advocate for themselves in a professional manner, this can come across as unprofessional or you know uncomfortable for people to have. But if you're that care experienced person, how can you navigate the business world or opportunities in the world if you've never been taught how to? So I wanted to create a piece for care experienced children and leavers to have as factual evidence where people can't argue with that. You know, what they're saying makes physical sense and ethical sense. So with that booklet, I wanted to give it to care experienced leavers and children, but not just to them, but to
Yeah.
foster people, anyone in that sector. Because when I first started designing my booklet, a lot of people would think start business on LinkedIn or, you know, some sort of professional site. But I actually started on TikTok because I wanted to engage the kids rather than the
Yeah.
business side. Because if I was going to go to a business, I know the kids are the hardest things to engage. So if I can show the kids are already on board, then they can't really argue with the stats of what I'm showing. I had over 140,000 views on one of my videos with over 700 plus comments of people in police say we need it, midwifery, school teachers, wherever there is children. I'd say about 98% guarantee you that you will come across a care experienced child. And I think it's vital for anyone that's working with children to have that understanding of how to deal with a child that's in need, whether it's advocating them to social services, you know, putting in, you know, a place of concern, signposting them to a charity, helping them with work. I think it's really important for us as a community to get that recognition, because I feel like every other community, whether that be the trans community, the LGBTQ plus community, the Black community, any other community that's been through hardship, I feel like they've got some sort of recognition. But when it comes to care experienced children, it's often a taboo subject, because often, you know, the horrible realities that come with the care system. But it needs to be spoken about, because if it's continuing this way, then so many care experienced children will be failed, like they already are. Not all of them have the capacity to carry on the way that I do. Essentially why I started this in the first place, because I felt like there wasn't, when I was looking up for successful care leavers, I didn't feel like there was enough representation, or there wasn't people for them to go to. And what I want to do with this business, and with my booklet, is I want to create a space where care experienced people get recognition of their lived experience and actually compensate for what they do. Because I know we spoke about, and you asked me what are the difficulties that I faced so far in this business. And I think what I have faced, whether that be in care experience and in business, is actually people trying to take me seriously and actually being paid for my work. Now, if you were starting up a business, you would get a business consultant to help you run your business. So if you're wanting care experience people to give their narrative when it's actually quite traumatic as well, then I believe they should be compensated, and we should be welcomed into certain area. I mean, the care system's £1 billion industry, so why is there so many of the kids being failed? And I've gone to so many charities or CICs and places, and I've gone to ask for help, and they said, we help with this, we help with that. And I can categorically say, I'd probably say less than on one hand that have actually come through. And what I want to do with my business is, I don't want to just talk about my lived experiences, because I'm a white British girl from the middle of the countryside. I'm not Zainab, who's black from London, who's going to recognise my story or may relate to it fully. So what I want to do is, I want to, obviously, with my booklet, have that as the evidential piece of that what I'm showcasing can help people. But I also want to help other care leavers get to where they want to be and protect them when it comes to giving lived experience work, because I feel like we're sort of looked down upon, or we're not paid correctly, or we're not taken seriously. Now, I understand there has to be some professional standards in business, of course, but don't ask for lived experience from vulnerable care leavers and not compensate them, because you'd ask anybody else for help to run a business. So why not treat a care leaver as a fair employee, to be honest?
100%. No, definitely. And I've ordered a few of your booklets, which
Thanks.
are
I
brilliant.
appreciate
And
that.
and I know we're going to chat about how we can maybe support in terms of trying to launch these across our charity as well for young people. So your company's Future for Care Leavers.
Mhm.
What else what other plans or ideas have you got to help support care experience? I'm sure you've got lots of ideas. I know what you
Yeah.
like, Shannon.
So, well, firstly, Gareth, I want to say to you that you do an amazing job within the industry, and thank you for, speaking to me and wanting to help me and order my books. It really means
Thank
a
you.
lot. What I want to do is, so I do want to add, because obviously this is my first launch of this, there's things I want to update, there's things, I've learned on the way. So look out for potentially new pages or something that connects to this, because I do want to add some more information in there. What I'm also currently working on is understanding the care system program. So it ties into my booklet. So there's going to be two sectors to it. So there's a business component, so for companies, on how to support care experienced people or how to understand care experienced people or the system. And then there's going to be one for care experienced children and leavers. So basically talking about, a little bit about my journey, rights and entitlements, everything care pretty much. It's going to be educational but also fun as well. I also want to give them something at the end where they can actually put something on their CV or get to know something about themselves. I want to take them on a little bit of a journey on what the care community is and to try change that narrative, even when talking about difficult conversations or topics. I want to create a safe space for that. So a program. I'm also doing a lot of social media stuff. So the reason why I do social media stuff is because a lot of the younger generation are on social media. I think I seen a study actually that I can't remember how many kids it was, but it was a lot of kids have spoke to, what was it, to AI about their problems before they've even spoke to a real life human being. So I thought, if I, showcase what I do within the care system. So, for example, today with the podcast, I recently went to London for an educational trip to Parliament. If I can actually showcase this is possible, then they might have that spark of I can do it, or, you know, support workers that want to help care experience or have some questions or may not understand something, they can look at my page and get that sort of information. There's so many things that I want to do. I mean, if I had £1 million, I'd probably do it overnight, but because, you know, it's me and, you know, pretty much doing it, it's one step at a time.
Yeah, no, it's hard work, isn't it? So
Yeah, it's hard work.
so what's your biggest achievement so far, would you say, Shannon?
My biggest achievement. That's really hard. Can I say like a couple highlights? I'd say
Yeah,
like 2
definitely.
or
Yeah.
3 highlights. I think one of the first highlights for me was getting messages from care experienced children that they were inspired by me and how much of a great job that I'm doing. I think that was one of the pinnacles of why I started this. It wasn't about, you know, how many sales I did or, you know, how far I got or whatever. I think having children in similar situations to myself and having that, you know, recognition of what I'm doing is helping. I feel like that's number one. I feel like that'll always be the greatest takeaway is helping those kids or people that need it. Yeah, so that was number one. I'd say landing my own BBC article was quite a big thing for me with my last name. You'd look up my last name and the first thing you'd see is criminal convictions or horrible news articles with my last name. So I'm glad that I got to change the narrative of my last name for my granddad that sadly passed before he could see all of what I did. So now that you look up my family's last name and it's not just negativity, I think that was quite a big thing. I'd say thirdly, I'd say landing a magazine cover as well with Foster Talk. I never thought that little old me would end up on a front cover of a magazine. I mean, that is literally every girl's dream. Yeah, I'd say those are my 3 highlights. Obviously getting recognition from the book and producing the booklet itself to help others and getting that clarification, changing the trajectory of my last name if you'd looked it up, and then my magazine cover with Foster Talk. I feel like those were like really big things so far, and I'd say it's close fourth, maybe Parliament.
I've had
So
pretty
many
amazing
things.
highlights, actually. Very
Yeah,
good. Yeah.
I've had some really amazing things, and then going on another podcast in London with Serene Pod. That was amazing. Getting on here, I've got really lucky with the opportunities and the people that have helped me on the way that have really gone hard for me. You know, special shout out to them all because I wouldn't be where I am without that support. And I know the care community gets a lot of stick, but those that actually do put in the work and help care experienced care leavers like me, they are real life angels. So shout out to you all.
Brilliant. And what's your why? Like, I ask that a lot. What
Mhm.
gets you out of bed in the morning? What's your drive?
So in my life, I've always wanted to prove people wrong. I come from a low income background, from the care system. My dad was in and out of prison. My mum was a single mum. I've always had that drive to be the underdog and prove people wrong. Um, Through the statistics of being a care leaver of you'll never do this, you'll end up in prison, you'll end up down and out. That really drives me to be the best version of myself and be a representative. And I don't want to say that in a vain way because I know it can be received as that way, but I just want to be an example of just because of coming from a low income background, you can make the changes, you can be successful, and also wanting to help the kids that were once just like me. I believe that every child or adult should have someone in their life. And if I can be that somebody or that example to someone that's care experienced, then, you know, that's worth waking up for every day, as someone that was very depressed in the care system and didn't want to be here a lot of the times when I was 15, feeling like my life would be a failure. Yeah, that's my goal of waking up every day, is I would not accept a life I do not deserve, pretty much. So yeah.
Okay, and I've got one question for you. What,
Mhm.
like, you've had some real challenges,
Yeah.
and you're in a really positive place now,
Mhm.
and you're such a lovely human.
Oh, thank you.
If you were to go back to yourself when you was a child, what advice would you give yourself now by looking back? What would you say?
Um, I think I would give my 15-year-old self a hug, to be honest. Oh, I do want to get emotional, but I think I'd go
Sorry.
back and I think I'd just say, like, just believe in yourself. Like, there's no one really that's going to be there for you the moment you go to sleep or the moment that you wake up or the moment that you leave this earth. I feel like, just keep going and just give myself that push, care experience children, you haven't even lived some of the best days of your life yet. So just hang in there. All those bad days are worth one amazing day that you just won't forget about. So I'd say to my 15-year-old self, just hang in there because you haven't lived some of the best days of your life yet. Just keep going, believe in yourself, beat the odds, and yeah, just be in for the ride, basically.
Love that. Love that. God, I got a bit emotional then. Um, so last question I've got for you.
Mhm.
um, we talk about, sort of how challenging and chaos everyday life is at the minute and mental health and stuff. What do you do for your own well-being to keep yourself sane?
What do I do for my own well-being? I think I am a perfectionist, so I'm constantly not not chasing a high, but like I'm constantly wanting to do the best next thing. Like I'll always put pressure on myself to do this, to do that, and then I'm like, once I've done it, I've got to keep going. I think to just um not put so much pressure on yourself and to just enjoy life sometimes. I feel like a lot of the time, naturally, as humans, we compare each other. We see social media, all the good bits of people's lives. That's why I started, my TikTok journey, my, Instagram journey, my LinkedIn journey, because I wanted to show the good, bad and the ugly. Because I know as humans, we compare each other and it's okay to have them bad days, because if there wasn't bad days, you wouldn't enjoy the good as much. So yeah, just not beating myself up for being sad or failing things, or not being to where I want to be yet, like compared to a lot of my friends or my peers or people even in this industry. To just enjoy the ride. Tomorrow is never promised. I can see, I can hear, my two legs are working. So just be thankful for today and what you put out in the world today, and just being kind to myself and not putting that pressure on myself. I think that's how I keep myself sane and remember what I'm doing it for.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, definitely. Not being too hard on yourself. I like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. It's been brilliant having you on, Shannon. So if people want to find out a little bit more about what you do, what's your website again?
Futureforcareleavers.com. That's it across all platforms, whether that be LinkedIn. No, I think I'm Shannon Louise on LinkedIn. Future for Care Leavers on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and my site. I mean, TikTok is a little bit less professional, I'd say. But yeah, if you want to contact me, I do have an inquiry thing on my website where you can get hold of me.
Brilliant. Excellent. And I look forward to for us connecting a bit more and hopefully working a bit more closely together. So
Exciting
thank you for your time. Yeah, definitely. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.